I think the only reason there should be a difference between men and women should be in terms of like the biological functions.
I'm more of a gender advocate.
Engaging that system that makes it difficult for women to benefit and enjoy their rights, for women to be treated as equal human beings.
So we are seeing family structures change, dynamics change.
35% of women in Nigeria have experienced gender-based violence.
We even have organizations that are making young women sign contracts to the effect that if they are not married, they will not marry in the next 3 years. If they are married, they will not have children in the next 2 or 3 years, which is a big issue.
Feminism to me has two parts. Firstly, it's about gender equality, that both men and women should be equal. And I think that's the ultimate goal of all feminists. Another part, and this was put forward by Andrew Haywood, is the belief that women are disadvantaged because of their sex and that this disadvantage can and should be overthrown. And I like this definition because it focuses on the specific barriers that women face. And so it's not just saying that men and women should be equal. Yes, that's the goal, but we're addressing the specific disadvantage that women face so that men and women will be equal at the end of the day.
To me, feminism, in one word, is equality. So by equality, I mean equal opportunities for everyone, devoid of gender, race, devoid of economic standing or status in society, devoid of who you are as a person, equal opportunities economically, socially, politically, and otherwise.
Feminism is simply advocating and believing in equal rights for women and men, believing that women are as equal human beings as men are, and therefore women are entitled to equal rights, and engaging that system that makes it difficult for women to benefit and enjoy their rights, for women to be treated as equal human beings. Engaging that system and making sure that where the imbalance exists, it balances.
To me, feminism is just about having equal rights and opportunity and accepting the presence of equity.
I wouldn't say feminism has any direct meaning or definition, but I generally feel any quest for equality by both genders, male or female, is a cause for feminism.
I can say I'm a feminist, but I'm more of a gender advocate, and I support the promotion of human rights generally. So yes, I'm a feminist, more of a gender advocate.
I consider myself as a feminist because I believe in those two things I just said. I believe that men and women should be equal. The fact that I'm a woman doesn't mean I should have any barriers placed on me. It doesn't mean I can't do certain things, or doesn't mean I should be forced to do certain things. Like, I think the only reason there should be a difference between men and women should be in terms of like the biological functions. Maybe only women can get pregnant and give birth, only women can breastfeed and stuff like that. But if I want to be a doctor, if I want to be a pilot, if I want to be a driver, whatever I want to be, I shouldn't get anyone saying, oh, because you're a woman, you shouldn't do that. And I shouldn't also get anyone saying that, oh, because you're a woman, you must cook and clean and do all the domestic chores and you can't go to work. I mean, that shouldn't be something based on gender. Anyone can cook, anyone can clean, anyone can go out and work and do whatever they want to do.
Well, I consider myself a feminist, and not just a feminist, but I actually consider myself a radical feminist. And that is what most people know me to be, a radical intersectional feminist. So I'm very deliberate about my type of feminism, because as much as possible, I make sure that I'm always focusing on inclusive and then diversity, making sure that when you talk about vulnerable and marginalized groups, they are also when you dig deeper, because women, for instance, are not a homogeneous group, there are different categories of women who might be more vulnerable than others. All women are vulnerable, but we also have amongst them persons living with disability. You can have unmarried women, you can have single mothers, you can have women who are married but they do not have children, and you can have women in rural areas being more vulnerable than women in urban centers as well. So that is how I consider myself too. And also, when I say I'm a radical feminist, I say so because I am not interested in the system maintaining strategies. I am more interested in emancipating people. And by doing that, I focus more on ensuring that as we do our advocacy, as we work on empowering women and other vulnerable groups, as we work to ensure that equal opportunities are created for people, we have to make sure that the system is ready to accept them. And by so doing, we mean a system that will be changed along with the change that we seek to see in the women.
Generally, I'm not someone that likes labels or titles, but if being a feminist is someone that wants equality for everybody, for people to be treated equally, treated well, treated with respect, dignity, have their integrity and, self-respect respected, if that's what feminism or being a feminist is, I don't mind that kind of label, because I believe it's something that is close to my heart and is something that we should all aspire to be. So in that case, I don't mind being labeled a feminist.
I am not a closet feminist. I'm a publicly declared feminist. I belong to groups and affiliations that identify as feminists. I deliberately look out for issues that affect women and call it out and work towards fixing them. So I am a feminist. I have been for almost 2 decades. Right out of school, I declared my interest as a feminist and have not gone back on that. I believe in the collective effort of other women to promote women's rights and all of that. But I also respect that there are a group of women who work for women, who advocate for the rights of women, but who refuse to be called feminists. And I respect their position on that. I am in my early to mid 40s, so I can base my discussion on my memory. I noticed feminism in the 90s, right around the era of the Beijing conference. That was 25 years ago. And there was a lot of discussion in the media as to who was going and who wasn't going. And there was a lot of political issues around the first lady of our country versus the opposition political parties representative versus activists, women activists, and all of that. So it was in that era, 25 years ago, that I began to tune into the issues of activism. And then some women self-identified as feminists, some identified as women rights activists. And when you trace the record of Ghana's women's machinery towards promoting the rights of women, we date back to probably 45 years ago, when as a country we dedicated an agency within the government. It was called the Department of Women. It's about 45 years ago since a department was set aside within government to respond to and promote the issues of women. And in as much as this was led by government, alongside was civil society movements that supported the work of government or that held government accountable to its commitment that it made through the Department of Women.
I think feminism has always been in Ghana since time immemorial, because it's the work that people have done, that people like me are standing on to continue the struggle. But maybe what I would say differently to that question, tweaking it a little bit, is when did people start identifying as feminists in Ghana? Because over time, when people considered and tag themselves as feminists, the labeling comes out. there's always an eye on those people, and the people are not comfortable with that tag. So you find a lot more people who consider themselves as feminists saying they are gender activists. So if you even want to organize a program that has feminist principles and programs that looks at changing the status quo and liberating women, and you make a mistake and tag feminism along, you won't have people coming because of the name and the tag. So you have people calling themselves gender advocates, gender activists. But in more recent years, let me say in the past decade, you have people owning and labeling themselves as feminists openly and using it on every platform, people using it on social media accounts, etc., and writing they are feminists, people standing on huge platforms to talk about issues and considering themselves as feminists, which didn't used to be. But over the years and with what has happened, I would say that from the onset of the Beijing Platform for Action, which is 25 years, feminism has always been in Ghana. And we've had different women doing different work in different fields to change the status quo. And especially, I remember when I was very young, there was a popular song on TV, Send Your Girl Child to School, which all of us became familiar with, which quipped the interest and forced a lot of parents to bring their girl children to school. Because initially the misconception was that school was for boys and girls were for the kitchen, and that campaign changed everything in Ghana.
Like generally, women from time in Nigerian history has fought for their rights. Even before the word feminism came, women in Nigeria has stood up for what they believe in and fought for their rights. And we have example in the 1914 Okidi Palava, when women came out to protest against the British and indigenous men making decisions without their consent, okay? And we can see that even before the word feminism was written in paper, Nigerian women were already fighting for their rights.
I know that even like during the colonial period, there are some women who, stood up against the status quo. I know about the Aba women's uprising. I know about I think Fumilayo, Ransom Kuti, and all of that. So feminism has been in Nigeria for a long time. Maybe it wasn't labeled as that, but in the sense that women were, standing up and fighting for their rights. I think it's been even during the colonial era.
When we look back historically, we've always had this fight for women. We've heard about the Aba women's riots. That was really a feminist revolution. When you look, beyond, historically. Then when you see people like Queen Amina, the leading men to fight those wars, that was feminism in action, and that was years ago, hundreds, years ago. Then when we see the exploits of women like Gambo Sawaba, Fumi Ransom Kuti, we realize that feminism has always been there. In different forms. It's just that it didn't have a label, it didn't have a title, it didn't have a name. But now, with our understanding and knowledge, we understand that that was feminism in action.
Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, I love her books, and she talks a lot about feminism, and her talk and her book, We Should All Be Feminists, really inspired me a lot, the kind of arguments that she put forward. And there's one thing that she said about culture that I'm kind of paraphrasing now, but I think she said, if the full humanity of women isn't part of our culture, then we must change that culture, because it's the people that make culture, it's not culture that makes people. Because people like to say that, in a Nigerian culture, women don't do this, women don't do that. But I found that quote really inspiring. It's not about saying, this is what our culture says, because we're the ones that make the culture. So if it doesn't uphold the rights of women, then we need to change that culture.
I believe, should I say Chimamanda, her definition of feminism, her expressions in her artwork, in her writings, it speaks to me. She's someone I admire a lot. She's one person. There's Michelle Obama. I love her words, what she says, anything that comes from her. There was this, we have the Prime Minister of New Zealand. she's a feminist in action. She's done so much for women. There's a Scottish First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon. She portrays, exemplifies feminism in action, you know. Coming home, I look at people like Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, and I see feminism spouting for her. The fight, you know, when I saw the challenges she faced, you know, to become the Director General of the World Trade Organization, I heard her speeches, I saw the challenges, everything she faced. I just felt feminism was being put on trial. And the way she managed, she carried herself, she overcame, you know, the challenges, even her response, you know, to the horrible Swedish newspaper headline, referring to her as a grandmother. You know, it spoke to all the things that we feminists fight against. The fact that as a woman, you are seen, if you are not seen as a model, something for men to gawk, then you must be a grandmother, something to be derided. So these are the things that we fight against, that women should be respected and viewed as individuals, not as physical beings, you know, to be oppressed or to be suppressed.
My feminist icon is Funmilayo Ransome-Kuti. She's like one of she's the first recognized feminist in Nigeria. And that's because of she has done a lot of work. She helped, you know, promote women's, she helped to like drag attention to challenges women have faced politically, socially, and she also helped create a women's club, Abeokuta Women's Club, which later metamorphosed. And we can see that she has made different impacts in the history of Nigeria generally and in women's history.
I'll have a host of them. Key amongst them include Dr. Esther Ofeya-Buaje, who is a mistress in local governance issues in Ghana. And for her, she took me in as a mentee and mentored me and kept me on track, you know, gave me opportunities that hitherto I might not have been exposed to. And she actually also taught me that nothing should be a hindrance in life to a woman if she set out to do it. Then there is also Nana Asantewaa Afajinu. Nana Asantewaa is also a different kind of feminist, you know, very calm and collected, and she's a go-getter. You know, she's a radical feminist in her own way. And then there is Benisam. Benisam was also actually my coach in a program that was organized by the New York University, and she has remained that since. You know, and these people are always showing us the way. They are path pavers, you know, and they are doing things that encourages other people to also go on the same path.
Mrs. Rollins, Nana Konadu Ajiman Rollins. This is a woman who believed in the rights of women, and she formed a movement, 31st Women, December Women's Movement, that was provided the biggest platform for women to gather together. And as much as they were mainly market women, they had some political underpinnings. And what they did with that collective platform was to advocate for improvement for the lives of women economically. And they would advocate for things like that. Movement was what birthed the development of daycare centers in markets. So then, recognizing the roles of women in society, what they did was, because women were already charged with the duty of caring for their children, their toddlers, through to the stage where they can be independent, it was believed, and it still is, the fact that these duties and responsibilities stole away time from their business, the ability to run their business or to do their political activism. So the best way was to plant daycare facilities within their business centers, which was the markets, the big markets across the country. So then it would be easy for women, when they went to trade in their markets, they'll have someone or somewhere where their babies will be catered for. So that was phenomenal.
Key challenges I've seen. The first one affects everyone in Nigeria and probably around the world, but it also affects women more, which is poverty. Poverty is one of the challenges that women have faced, and it's something that should be looked at. The second challenge that I feel like has plagued women is gender-based violence. Gender-based violence is really something that has affected women in Nigeria. I don't know, I have the statistics here that says 35% of women in Nigeria have experienced gender-based violence.
In the political sphere, we are hearing having challenges with women that aspire for political or elective positions. You know, we are still fighting stereotypes of women in leadership, despite the fact that historically, even from all our religious books, you know, they've been instances where women played leading roles in the Quran, in the Bible. They are historical examples. So we now wonder why it's still being looked at as a strange thing. Patriarchy is still real, and we have the custodians of patriarchy, who are other women who believe that to get relevance, to be respected, they have to obey the man, or they don't want to change the political structures. So some of the challenges we face. And because all these things come together, we now see an increase in gender-based violence. You know, men that feel emasculated, they feel powers are being taken from them. They feel that their place is being taken over by women.
I think also economic independence, and maybe this is especially within like rural women. A lot of them really like, you know, depend on their husbands for money to be able to feed, to be able to do anything. And even if they have like a small business or something, but it's usually not enough to sustain them. Like they have to receive money from their husbands or something, and if their husband doesn't give them money, then they're in trouble, they can't eat and stuff like that. So I think economic independence is really a major challenge for them.
Well, there are a host of it. I mean, if you talk about economically, I mean, our labor markets are structured in ways that disadvantages women in so many ways. So you can even have laws that protect women in work, but it is about implementation, you know, and about people even knowing the existence of those laws and legislations in their country, and how the employment system is structured. Now you have a problem with what we call featuring, which is the new forms of employment. So employers are not employing directly from the labor market, and they are employing and recruiting more through agencies. And these agencies are looking out for something. All they care about is the amount of money that they make, the bottom line for them. They don't want to be responsible for anything for women who are pregnant, for women who are in their childbearing age, women who are not married and hopes to marry, and they want a certain categories of women also from a certain age as well. So the challenge there is that we even have organizations that are making young women sign contracts to the effect that if they are not married, they will not marry in the next 3 years. If they are married, they will not have children in the next 2 or 3 years, which is a big issue. So it makes a lot more women shift into the informal sector. That is why in Africa, we have a lot of women in that sector. It is not a bad sector. The challenge there is also that that sector is not well regulated. They are not covered by any labor legislation in Ghana, for instance. So when you work there, you are in precarious employment, your salaries are not regulated, you do not enjoy maternity leave, you do not enjoy any other form of protection, equal pay for work of equal value. No legislation that governs the labor market governs also protects them.
Then insecurity. You know, a lot of times, you know, before it was just about going out late in the evening, being out late, being out on your own. Now, even in your home, there is no security. People come in to attack you. You are raped. You know, women are being raped in their home, in the workplace, in schools, you know, by people that are supposed to protect them, you know, and there isn't really anywhere to recourse to justice. The courts are not helping. The police are not helping, you know. Society sometimes doesn't help. So we've evolved and gone beyond the era of women wearing short skirts, or it's by their dressing. Now, the world realizes that it's not your dressing that makes you vulnerable to be raped or attacked. Insecurity is something that affects even men now. Even men are being raped, boys are being raped. So we now see it as a collective struggle. Before, when it was about women, people weren't really listening to women talking. Now that they are seeing cases of it affecting both genders, the conversations are now changing.
Maybe right to the dignity of the person as well. If you think about like female genital mutilation, which surprisingly still happens even in 2021, and then maybe widows as well. Sometimes in some places they are made to go through really terrible things just to prove that they didn't kill their husbands, which is really ridiculous, because why is there even that assumption in the first place? So yeah, I would say economic rights, political rights, and rights to dignity of the person, they are really not being upheld in Nigeria.